The day Earth received its first alien visitors started like any other Tuesday morning. Ambassador Rachel Morrison stood on the observation deck of Unity 7, watching the massive alien ship drift closer through the black void of space. The vessel was beautiful in a way that made her chest tight. It looked like someone had sculpted light itself into the shape of a ship, all smooth curves and glowing panels that pulsed with soft blue energy. "Ma'am, they're requesting permission to dock," Lieutenant Derek Hayes said from behind her. His voice had that edge to it, the one he got when he was nervous but trying not to show it. "Granted," Rachel said. She smoothed down her suit jacket, a nervous habit she'd never quite broken. "And Derek, relax. We've practiced this 100 times. Practice is different from the real thing," he muttered. Rachel couldn't argue with that. No amount of simulation could prepare you for actually meeting aliens for the first time. Real aliens. Not Hollywood monsters or little green men, but actual living beings from another world who'd crossed the stars to find humanity. The docking procedure took 20 minutes. Rachel used the time to review her notes one last time, though she'd memorized every word weeks ago. The diplomatic protocols. The greeting phrases their linguists had prepared. The carefully chosen gifts that represented humanity's best qualities without revealing too much about their capabilities. When the airlock finally opened, she got her first look at Ambassador Veltries in person. He was tall, maybe 7 feet, with skin that shimmered like oil on water. His eyes were large and golden, set in a face that was almost human-like but not quite. He wore robes that seemed to move on their own, flowing around him like liquid silk. "Ambassador Morrison," he said in perfect English, his translator device humming softly at his collar. "On behalf of the Galactic Concordance, I bring greetings to the people of Earth." Rachel stepped forward and offered her hand, palm up, in the gesture their research had suggested was respectful in Concordance culture. "Ambassador Veltries, welcome to Unity 7. We're honored by your presence." The next few hours passed in a blur of tours and presentations. Rachel showed them the station's hydroponics bay, where food grew in vertical gardens that stretched 3 stories high. She took them through the art gallery, where paintings and sculptures from every human culture lined the walls. She introduced them to Dr. James Patterson, their chief scientist, who eagerly explained humanity's latest breakthroughs in fusion energy and medical technology. The aliens seemed genuinely impressed. Veltries' assistant, a smaller being named Pelix, took extensive notes on everything. They asked thoughtful questions about human history, art, and philosophy. They admired the diversity of human cultures. They praised the ingenuity of human engineering. But Rachel noticed something in Veltries' eyes. A calculation. An assessment. He was measuring them, weighing them, trying to figure out where humanity fit in his galactic hierarchy. During a break in the formal proceedings, Rachel overheard Veltries speaking to his security chief in their own language. The translator in her earpiece rendered it into English. "They're more advanced than we expected," the security chief said. "But their military presence is minimal. Scientific vessels only. Commercial stations. They're peaceful to the point of vulnerability." "Indeed," Veltries replied. "They'll need significant protection once they join the Concordance. The Hevron Collective would view them as easy prey." Rachel kept her face neutral and continued walking, but her heart raced. There it was. The assumption that had driven human strategy for the past 40 years. The galaxy saw kindness as weakness. Openness as opportunity. Every species that had joined the Galactic Concordance had done so from a position of technological inferiority, becoming junior partners at best and vassals at worst. That evening, after the aliens had retired to their guest quarters, Rachel stood in the command center with Lieutenant Hayes and reviewed the day's recordings. "They think we're primitives," Derek said flatly. "They think we're peaceful," Rachel corrected. "There's a difference. Should we be worried about these Hevron Collective people they mentioned?" Rachel pulled up a star chart on the main display. Red dots marked Hevron-controlled systems. There were dozens of them, scattered across hundreds of light years. "Our probes have been tracking them for years. They're aggressive expansionists. They show up, make demands, and if you refuse they make examples. And Veltries thinks we need protection from them." "He does." Rachel zoomed in on the Sol system. Faint blue markers appeared, hundreds of them, scattered throughout the asteroid belt, the outer planets, even in high orbit around Earth itself. Positions only visible to those with the right clearance codes. "Which is why it's good that we have insurance." Derek grinned. "Think we'll need it?" "Hope for the best, prepare for the worst," Rachel said. "That's always been the human way." She dismissed the hologram and headed for her quarters. Tomorrow they'd continue the diplomatic dance. Ambassador Veltries would continue assessing humanity's weaknesses. And somewhere out there in the dark, invisible and silent, 342 Terran warships would continue their patient watch. Just in case peace wasn't enough. The morning of Day 4 started with an alarm that made Rachel's coffee cup jump off her desk. Red lights flashed through the command center of Unity 7, and every screen switched to tactical displays without anyone touching them. Multiple jump signatures detected. Lieutenant Derek Hayes called out from his station. His fingers flew across the controls. 15 no 20 contacts. Mass readings are off the charts. Rachel was already moving toward the main display. Position. Outer marker, right at the edge of our diplomatic zone. Derek's face went pale as more data streamed in. Rachel, these aren't Concordance ships. The display resolved into crisp images, and Rachel felt ice settle in her stomach. 20 massive warships hung in space like a pack of predators surrounding wounded prey. They were all hard angles and brutal design, built for one purpose only. These weren't exploration vessels. These were ships made for conquest. Get Ambassador Veltries on the line, Rachel said. Now. The Concordance ambassador appeared on screen within seconds. His golden eyes were wide with what Rachel had learned to recognize as fear. Ambassador Morrison, you need to evacuate Earth immediately. Those are Hevron Collective warships. The ones you mentioned? The aggressive expansionists. Yes, but I don't understand. How did they know? We've kept this first contact completely confidential. Veltries' image flickered as more ships appeared on sensors. They're bringing their entire regional fleet. 30 ships now. 40. Rachel watched the numbers climb. 50. 70. 100. Each vessel larger than Unity 7 itself. How many are coming? All of them, apparently. Veltries looked sick. Ambassador, you must understand. The Hevron don't negotiate. They demand submission or they attack. You need to accept Concordance protection immediately. Before Rachel could respond, every communication system on the station crackled to life at once. A voice boomed through the speakers, harsh and filled with contempt. The translator struggled to keep up with the aggressive tone. Primitive species of the third planet. I am War Marshal Thovok of the Hevron Collective. Your system now falls under Hevron protection. You will surrender all military assets. You will provide tribute of raw materials and manufactured goods. You will accept Hevron governors to oversee your integration into our empire. Rachel exchanged glances with Derek. The lieutenant had his hand hovering over a specific control panel, the one marked with biometric locks and red warning labels. She gave him the smallest shake of her head. Not yet. She activated her own communicator. War Marshal Thovok, this is Ambassador Rachel Morrison of Earth. We appreciate your interest, but humanity isn't seeking protection at this time. We respectfully ask you to withdraw from our space. The silence that followed lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then Thovok laughed. It wasn't a pleasant sound. You think you have a choice? His face appeared on the main screen. He looked like someone had taken a bear, given it scales, and taught it to hate everything. I have counted your pathetic fleet. 12 ships. Scientific vessels with minimal armament. My fleet numbers 200 warships, each capable of glassing your entire planet in hours. We understand the disparity in visible forces, Rachel said carefully. But we're asking you to reconsider. Reconsider? Thovok leaned forward and Rachel could see rows of sharp teeth. Let me make this simple for your primitive mind. Submit or watch your cities burn from orbit. You have one of your Earth hours to decide. Ambassador Veltries tried to cut in. War Marshal, these people are under Concordance diplomatic protection. Your attack would violate. The Concordance has no claim here, Thovok snarled. And if you continue to interfere, Veltries, I'll consider your ship hostile as well. I know the Concordance. You're soft. You won't fight over primitives who haven't even formally joined your alliance. Rachel watched as Hevron weapons systems powered up. Energy signatures spiked across her sensors. They were preparing to fire not just at Earth but at the Luminous Accord as well. Veltries' ship was outgunned 20-1. The Concordance ambassador's image flickered with stress. War Marshal, please. These people deserve a chance too. They deserve nothing. Thovok cut him off. Ambassador Morrison, your time begins now. 1 hour. Submit or die. The channel went dead. Derek was out of his chair. Rachel, we have to evacuate. Get people to the shelters. We can't fight 200 warships with scientific vessels. No, Rachel said quietly. We can't. She touched her earpiece, The one with the triple encrypted military channel that very few people knew existed. But someone else can. She took a deep breath. This was it. The moment they'd hoped would never come but had prepared for since the day they'd first detected alien signals in deep space. The moment humanity would have to show its teeth. Authorization Morrison Alpha 9, she said clearly. Execute Protocol Iron Wall. Derek's fingers flew across his station, entering secondary confirmation codes. Alarms blared across Unity 7, but these were different. These were military alarms, pulling double-duty personnel away from civilian stations to battle positions that hadn't been used in simulations for months. On the main display, Thovok's face reappeared. He was smiling. So you choose defiance. How predictable. All primitive species think they're special. That somehow they'll be different. He raised one clawed hand. Weapons free. Show them what happens to those who refuse Hevron protection. 200 warships turned their weapons toward Earth. And that's when space itself began to ripple. The first ship appeared without warning. One moment there was empty space between Unity 7 and the Hevron fleet. The next moment, reality seemed to fold in on itself, and a massive warship materialized like a ghost becoming solid. It was 3 times the size of any Hevron vessel, all sharp edges and weapon arrays that covered its hull like scales on a dragon. Then another appeared. And another. Derek's tactical display went insane, tracking signatures faster than the computer could label them. 1 ship. 5 ships. 20 ships. Rachel, they're everywhere. Rachel watched with quiet satisfaction as her life's work unveiled itself. 40 years of secret construction. 40 years of humanity pretending to be harmless while building the most advanced military force in the solar system. All those mining stations in the asteroid belt. All those research facilities on the moons of Jupiter. All of it had been a cover for humanity's insurance policy. The ships kept coming. 50. 75. 100. They appeared in perfect geometric formation, surrounding the entire diplomatic zone in a sphere of overwhelming firepower. Each one had been hiding in plain sight, wrapped in stealth technology that made them invisible to any sensor system the galaxy had ever seen. 150, Derek breathed. 200. 250. On the Concordance channel, Ambassador Veltries had gone completely silent. Rachel could see his image on the screen, frozen in shock. His golden eyes were wider than she'd ever seen them. His security chief was frantically working controls, probably trying to figure out how their sensors had missed an entire fleet. The Hevron channel was even better. War Marshal Thovok's confident sneer had melted like ice in summer. His claws gripped the arms of his command chair hard enough to leave marks. Behind him, Rachel could see his bridge crew in various states of panic. Alarms blared. Officers shouted. Someone was yelling about sensor failures. Impossible, Thovok whispered. Then louder, this is impossible. Our sensors detected nothing. 300 ships, Derek announced. His voice had gone from terrified to almost giddy. 312 Terran Defense Force warships, all fully armed and at battle stations. But they weren't done. The final ship to decloak made every other vessel look small by comparison. It appeared directly between Unity 7 and the Hevron fleet, close enough that Rachel could see every detail of its massive hull through the observation windows. The ship was a monster, a titan, a statement of intent written in steel and weapon systems. Its name blazed across the bow in letters 50 feet tall. TUDF Indomitable. Rachel had seen the Indomitable in construction dozens of times, but seeing it here, fully operational and ready for war, took her breath away. The dreadnought was nearly 2 miles long. Its hull bristled with so many weapon ports that counting them was pointless. Point defense turrets. Railgun batteries. Missile tubes. Energy weapons that could burn through a moon. And those were just the weapons they could see. My God, Lieutenant Hayes whispered. We actually built that thing. On the Hevron channel, someone was screaming. Not in rage. In fear. Pure animal terror. Thovok's fleet of 200 warships suddenly looked very small and very vulnerable, caught in a perfect kill box with 300 human ships surrounding them from every angle. The Concordance channel crackled to life. Veltries' voice was shaking. Ambassador Morrison. Your sensors. Our first meeting. You dismissed our readings as interference. We did, Rachel confirmed. It wasn't interference. You were already here. All of you. These ships. You've been watching us since the moment we arrived. Since before you arrived, Rachel corrected gently. We've been watching for a very long time, Ambassador. War Marshal Thovok had recovered some of his composure, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. A trick? Holographic projections. You're bluffing. Derek pulled up weapon signatures on the main display. Those are live reactors, Marshal. Every ship is at full power. Every weapon system is hot. We're reading enough firepower to sterilize a solar system. Before Thovok could respond, a new voice cut across every channel. It was calm, measured, and professional. The kind of voice that came from decades of military command. The kind of voice that didn't need to shout to be terrifying. Hevron vessels, this is Fleet Admiral Patricia Grant of the Terran United Defense Force. Stand down immediately. On Rachel's secondary screen, Admiral Grant's face appeared. She was a woman in her 50s with steel-gray hair cut military short. Her uniform was crisp and covered in ribbons that told the story of a long career. But it was her eyes that sold the message. They were the eyes of someone who had seen war, understood war, and would not hesitate to wage war if necessary. You are surrounded by 312 warships of Battle Group Sol, Grant continued in that same calm tone. Each vessel is equipped with weapons systems that exceed your technology by approximately 60 years. You are outgunned, outmaneuvered, and out of options. Thovok tried to bluster. You wouldn't dare attack us. The Hevron Collective would. Would what? Grant interrupted. Send reinforcements? By all means call them. We have 11 more battle groups scattered throughout human space. Call your entire fleet if you like. We'll wait. The silence that followed was deafening. Rachel watched Thovok's face cycle through emotions. Rage, disbelief, calculation, and finally fear. Real, genuine fear. He was a predator who had suddenly realized he was in a cage with something bigger and meaner than himself. This is impossible, Thovok said again, but this time it sounded like a plea. We have the most advanced fleet in this sector. You had the most advanced fleet, Grant corrected. Past tense. Now I'm going to give you 30 seconds to power down your weapons and prepare to withdraw from this system. If you refuse, or if even one of your ships opens fire, I will consider it an act of war against humanity. Admiral Grant leaned forward slightly, and Rachel saw the hint of a cold smile. And trust me, Marshal. You really don't want to see what humanity looks like when we go to war. Admiral Patricia Grant didn't raise her voice. She didn't need to. The 300 warships surrounding the Hevron fleet said everything that needed saying. But she spoke anyway because sometimes the lesson was more important than the threat. Let me educate you both, she began, her gaze moving between Thovok and Veltries on her display. About what humanity has really been doing for the past 40 years. Rachel watched from Unity 7 as Grant pulled up a star map on the main display. It showed the galaxy in stunning detail with hundreds of systems marked in different colors. Red for Hevron territory. Blue for Concordance space. Yellow for independent systems. And scattered throughout it all, tiny green dots that made Ambassador Veltries lean closer to his screen in confusion. Those green markers, Grant explained, are humanity's stealth reconnaissance probes. We launched the first one in 1985, right after we detected the first alien radio signals. Since then we've sent out 2,347 probes to every corner of this region of space. Derek pulled up the probe data on Rachel's private screen. She'd seen it before, of course, but it still amazed her. 40 years of intelligence gathering. 40 years of watching alien civilizations from the shadows, learning their languages, studying their technology, understanding their politics. We know about your galactic concordance, Grant continued, looking at Veltries. All 643 member species. We know about your council structure, your trade agreements, your mutual defense pacts. We've read your history books. We've watched your entertainment. We've listened to your debates about expansion policy. Veltries' face had gone pale, his golden eyes wide with shock. You've been spying on us? For 4 decades. We prefer the term informed observation, Grant said dryly. And yes, Ambassador. We've been watching. We've seen how the Concordance operates. How new species are welcomed but always as junior partners. How their military assets are integrated into Concordance defense forces. How their economies become dependent on Concordance trade networks. She pulled up another set of data. 17 species in the past century have joined the Concordance willingly. Within a generation, none of them maintained independent military forces. Within 2 generations their cultural identities began eroding. They're not conquered exactly. But they're not truly independent either. Rachel had read those reports. She'd spent years analyzing them, looking for patterns, trying to understand if humanity could trust the Concordance. The answer had been complicated. They weren't evil. They genuinely believed they were helping. But help from a position of overwhelming superiority wasn't really help. It was dependency. Grant's attention shifted to Thovok and her voice hardened. As for you, Marshal, we know the Hevron Collective even better. We've watched you vassalize 17 species in the same time frame. But unlike the Concordance, you don't pretend it's for their own good. The display changed, showing system after system falling under Hevron control. Each one followed the same pattern. Arrival. Demands. Resistance. Orbital bombardment. Submission. Tribute. The Kelrothi system, Grant said, highlighting one conquest. Population 4 billion. Refused Hevron protection. You destroyed 3 of their cities from orbit. 200 million dead. The survivors surrendered within a day. Thovok's jaw clenched, but he said nothing. The Praxis colonies. The Vendel homeworld. The Karath Federation. Grant listed them one by one, each name accompanied by casualty figures. 12 billion sentient beings currently living under Hevron occupation. We've watched you take them. We've documented every atrocity. We've recorded every war crime. She leaned back in her chair, and for the first time, Rachel saw something like sadness cross the Admiral's face. We watched and we learned. The galaxy doesn't reward kindness. It doesn't value peace. Show weakness and you'll be conquered or absorbed. That's just how things work out here. So we made a choice, Grant continued. We chose to appear weak while we built strength. We built these warships in secret orbital foundries disguised as mining stations. We developed stealth technology beyond anything the galaxy had seen. We trained crews and ran simulations and prepared for the day someone would come to Earth. She looked directly at Veltries. We had to know who would come in peace and who would come with chains. You, Ambassador, came with open hands. You offered friendship, trade, cultural exchange. So you met Ambassador Morrison, our scientists, our artists. You saw the best of humanity because you brought out the best in us. Veltries seemed to shrink in his chair. And if we had come with threats? Then you would have met me immediately, Grant said simply. And we wouldn't be having this conversation. Her eyes fixed on Thovok like a targeting laser. You, Marshal, came exactly as we expected. Demands, threats, violence. You saw humanity as prey. So now you see what we really are. Grant pulled up tactical displays showing all 312 warships in perfect formation. This is Battle Group Sol, our home defense fleet. But it's not our only fleet. We have 11 more battle groups scattered throughout human space, each one comparable in size and capability to this one. Thovok's claws dug into his armrests. Rachel could see the math happening behind his eyes. 300 ships here. 11 more groups. That was potentially 4,000 warships that humanity could field. The entire Hevron collective military numbered maybe 6,000 vessels, spread across dozens of systems. You're bluffing, Thovok said, but his voice cracked on the words. I don't bluff, Grant replied. I plan, I prepare, and I execute. And right now, my plan is very simple. You have 60 seconds to power down your weapons, turn your ships around, and jump back to whatever hole you crawled out of. After that, I stop being diplomatic and start being creative with my weapons systems. She glanced at a chronometer. 55 seconds. Thovok's bridge erupted in chaos. Officers were shouting, probably advising retreat. The War Marshal's face cycled through rage, humiliation, and finally, survival instinct. 40 seconds. All ships, Thovok snarled into his command channel. Power down weapons. Prepare for hyperspace jump. 30 seconds. The Hevron fleet began moving, sluggish and clumsy, their formation breaking apart as ships jockeyed for position to jump. 20 seconds. We're jumping now, Thovok shouted. Rachel watched as reality split open and the Hevron warships vanished one by one into hyperspace. 200 ships fleeing from a species they'd thought was primitive. The last ship disappeared at the 37-second mark. The silence that followed was beautiful. 2 hours after the Hevron fleet vanished into hyperspace, Ambassador Veltries requested a private meeting with Rachel. Not on Unity 7. Not on his flagship. But in a small observation room with nothing but a window, 2 chairs, and the truth between them. Rachel arrived first. She'd changed out of her formal diplomatic attire into something more comfortable, just slacks and a simple blue shirt. If they were going to have an honest conversation, she figured they might as well be comfortable. Veltries entered without his usual entourage of assistants and security. His robes looked rumpled and his golden eyes were tired. He sat down heavily in the chair across from her, and for a long moment he just stared out the window at the Terran warships still holding position in the distance. You deceived us, he finally said. His voice wasn't angry. If anything, he sounded impressed, maybe even a little relieved. From the very beginning, everything was theater. Rachel nodded slowly. We did. And I won't apologize for it because we had to. Trust isn't something you give freely in a dangerous galaxy. It's something you earn piece by piece through actions and choices. But why the elaborate pretense? Veltries leaned forward, genuine curiosity in his expression. Why not simply reveal your strength immediately? We would have approached you as equals from the start. Would you? Rachel countered gently. Or would you have seen us as a potential threat? Another military power to be cautiously managed, diplomatically contained? We'd have been negotiating from a position of mutual suspicion instead of mutual curiosity. She gestured to the warships outside. This way you showed us who you really are. You came in peace. You shared knowledge freely. You respected our culture and our choices. You earned our trust by being trustworthy. Veltries was quiet for a moment, processing this. And if we had come with hostile intentions? Then you would have met Admiral Grant within an hour of entering our system, Rachel said simply. And we wouldn't be sitting here having this conversation. You'd have been given the same choice we gave Thovok. Leave peacefully or face the consequences. You would have attacked a Concordance diplomatic vessel? We would have defended ourselves against anyone who threatened Earth, Rachel corrected. Concordance, Havron, or anyone else. We didn't spend 40 years building a defense fleet just to surrender when someone showed up with bigger ships. Veltries made a sound that might have been a laugh. Throughout human history, appearing weak invites predators. Is that an actual human saying? It's a lesson we learned the hard way. Rachel thought about the history books she'd studied. On Earth we have hundreds of nations. Thousands of cultures. We've fought wars over religion, resources, territory, ideology. For most of our history, the weak were conquered by the strong. Peace was maintained not through goodwill, but through balance of power. She looked at the alien ambassador. When we detected your first signals 40 years ago, we had to ask ourselves a question. Is the galaxy different from Earth? Or is it just Earth on a bigger scale? So we watched. We learned. And we discovered that the galaxy operates on the same principles. The strong dominate. The weak submit. There are no exceptions. The Concordance tries to be benevolent, Veltries said, a hint of defensiveness in his voice. I know, Rachel said, and she meant it. I've read your history. The Concordance genuinely believes it's helping younger species develop and prosper. But help from a position of overwhelming power isn't really help. It's patronage. And patronage leads to dependency. She pulled up a data pad and showed him statistics. Every species that joined the Concordance in the past century lost their independent military within 30 years. Within 50 years, their economies were completely integrated into Concordance trade networks. Within a century, their young people spoke Concordance standard better than their native languages. Cultural evolution is natural, Veltries protested. It is when it's voluntary, Rachel agreed. But when it's the inevitable result of a power imbalance, that's not evolution. That's absorption. And humanity isn't interested in being absorbed by anyone. Veltries sat back and Rachel could see acceptance in his eyes. Maybe even respect. So what happens now? Now we establish formal diplomatic relations, Rachel said. But as equals. Not as mentor and student. Not as protector and protected. As two independent civilizations with mutual interests and mutual respect. The Concordance Council will need to adjust their entire first contact protocol, Veltries said with a wry smile. You've rather broken our assumptions about how these things work. Good, Rachel said. Maybe we can all learn something from that. They spent another hour discussing the practical details. Trade agreements. Cultural exchanges. Technology sharing on mutually agreed terms. A Concordance embassy on Earth. A human embassy on the Concordance homeworld. All of it negotiated between equals. As Veltries prepared to leave, heading back to his ship for the journey home, he paused at the observation window. His eyes narrowed, focusing on something in the distance. Ambassador Morrison, he said carefully. My sensors are detecting new energy signatures. In the outer system near the Kuiper Belt. Hundreds of them. Rachel joined him at the window. She could see them too if she looked carefully. Faint distortions in space like heat shimmer, where something massive was bending light around itself. What are those? Veltries asked. Rachel smiled. It wasn't a cruel smile, but it wasn't entirely warm either. Those are the Titan-class dreadnoughts. We keep them in the outer system for existential threats. Each one is about 5 times the size of the Indomitable. Veltries' eyes widened. How many? Enough, Rachel said simply. You'll probably never see them decloak, Ambassador. Consider that a good thing. Veltri studied her face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. I think I understand now. First contact was peaceful not because humanity is peaceful, but because humanity made absolutely certain it would be. We hoped for peace, Rachel corrected. But we prepared for war. That's the human way. We learned a long time ago that if you want peace, you need to be strong enough to defend it. She extended her hand in the traditional human gesture of farewell. I hope we can build something good between our peoples, Ambassador. Real friendship between equals. Veltris took her hand. I believe we can. Though I suspect the galaxy will never look at humanity quite the same way again. Rachel watched his ship depart hours later, heading back to Concordance space with news that would shake their entire civilization. Humanity wasn't a primitive species needing guidance. They were a power to be respected, feared, and hopefully befriended. Lieutenant Derek Hayes joined her at the observation deck. Think they'll leave us alone now? I think they'll be very careful about how they approach us, Rachel said. Which is exactly what we wanted. First contact had been peaceful. And humanity would make sure it stayed that way.